Welcome back to Good Revenue. We're here today with Dexter Hardy. He's the CEO of Integral. Welcome, Dexter. We're thrilled to have you.
Awesome. Great to be here.
You've had a really interesting business pivot and you're managing just an incredible amount of growth over the last several years. Could you get us started by telling us a little bit about Integral's history?
Integral, simply put, we help you move to the cloud. We're headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been in business for a little bit over 20 years. Since 2002, we focused on DevOps and custom projects to help people mitigate their environments and now move to the cloud. So it's been a pretty awesome journey for sure.
COVID initially had a negative impact on this business, but it also ended up being a huge opportunity for you. You found inspiration from a passion of your son. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, just to double click on the whole COVID thing. Like I said, we started in 2002, but when COVID hit, it really forced us to rethink our business model because you're as a consultancy, you're in person, you're butts in seats right next to your customers and in meetings with them in person. COVID forced everything remote. As a consultant, the big question was, how do you add value in a disconnected world? How do you do the things that you're great at as a consultancy if you're no longer sitting aside your customer? That was the big challenge. How do we solve that? Enter my son. A million ideas flowing out of his head every day. He's into art and anime and graphics. And he was like, I want to create a book and I want to sell it. Okay, let's figure this out. Amazon had this whole platform for publishing. And so I'm like, look, dude, just let's come up with the little rubric of how you do it. We publish the books out and we see how it does. Long story short, he made his first publication. People downloaded his books out of Japan. I'm like, dude, how did you connect? And it's the internet. I'm like, come on, dude, you work in technology. Amazon is everywhere. It's not like it's just in Georgia or the surrounding states or just in the US. It gives you a global footprint. So that was my light bulb moment because I'm trying to solve this business challenge for Integral. What do we do? What is the thing that we do best in the world? And so what we did was we pivoted our business model from true consulting or in-person consulting to what I could deem as consulting 2.0, which is taking what you do really well, packaging it up into software or something that can be downloaded to empower somebody else to do something. That whole being exposed to COVID, having to really rethink the business, and then aha moment was really pivotal because after that, obviously we were just a regional company, regional consultancy with a handful of customers. Now we have over 10,000 customers or more that are globally over 150 countries. It opened up our mind to how vast the world is and what's truly possible leveraging hyperscalers.
You found a way to really scale a services business, which is
Yeah.
tricky. When you were thinking through the implications of this, how did you think about what the strategy would be to scale it? How did you operationalize that strategy?
So I have to be completely honest and say it wasn't a strategy. The strategy behind it was, let's see if this works. Like I literally was, okay, if we don't do something, we're going to be out of it. You're going to be a statistic. So I was like, okay, we have this thing. Let's put it out. Let's create it, put it in the marketplace. And literally before the end of that day, we had a download. And I'm like, wait, we're on to something here. So I will be truthful to anyone that's listening. The best strategy also includes execution. So the first thing that we did was like, let's create something and see how this works. So the whole MBA model, fail fast, all those things that they tell about in business school, that was just really reenacted with, okay, we'll try this, we get it out there, but literally without any advertising, any marketing, any of those things that you think that you need in order to present on a hyperscaler's platform. No, we just put it out there and the value was identified. So one of the things that we focused on is when we wrote up the description of our product, instead of thinking of it in terms of features and functionality and all this other stuff, I literally put back on that imagination hat. Why do people download an iPhone? They don't care. Or why do you have a Samsung phone? You're like, man, these takes great pictures. It's about the ease of life or how you've made things better. And so in our solutions is think about what is the value add? What is it that you're making easier, more effective, more efficient? And then the customers will see that as they're using the product. That's the self-fulfilling prophecy that kind of propels you into a myriad of different places.
You identified a really strong value proposition, and then you were able to successfully and quickly productize this offering. The hyperscaler relationship was really important to this as well. Can you tell us what that was like?
We focused on Microsoft first. Everyone's familiar with Azure,
Mhm.
but we focused on one hyperscaler and they really leaned into supporting businesses. And they have a lot of programs that help to support businesses through their ISV success program or their founders hub, where they help guide you through building your solution, giving you technical support to, if you need it, to help get you through that. I'll say it's two silos. One is how do you get there? So they provide assistance with that. But then the second piece is after having that platform that gives you that global presence. Like I said, we were in this local region. Once you go into a hyperscaler's marketplace, there's over 7 million active users that are doing the things that you're putting in the marketplace. So now you have that captive audience that they need something like that. And so now it's up to you to surface that value to them.
Platform environment, one of the challenges is that the discovery piece of this consideration, all the normal portions of a sales process can sometimes be tricky in a platform environment. How did
Yeah.
you think about solving for that problem?
So the benefit of having the experience of the 20 years, part of who we supported was digital agencies.
Mm.
We did Heinz, we did Ferrari, like all of these big HBO, Michael Rewards. We were supporting the delivery of these really high end brands and names. And one of the things that I really paid attention to in those meetings is it's about the value proposition. It's never about the tech, so to speak. What is the unique differentiator for you and your service over anyone else? I focused on one, the product led aspect of what we were doing. So focusing on building on our product, but it's also because you're in this hyperscaler environment, there's 400,000 partners that do something very similar. So you have to focus on your brand. You can't do everything, but what is it if you were to stand yourself up against all of those orgs that would make you like you are the best at that, right? It doesn't matter the size, it doesn't matter the complexity of what it is you're doing. You own that space. We focused on product, we focused on branding, and then we focused on community. We got involved with a lot of different communities that we support, our local community. Obviously, there's tech communities that we support, which is Women in Cloud, which I'm on the board of advisors for. And it's really to help empower other people to change their trajectory of their life, like providing scholarships and different things. You're really wanting to help the people so that they can improve themselves. But what ends up happening is there's brand recognition. They're like, this company really cares about us. And so I hate to say that you're not doing it for business, but it actually helps your business because now they see the genuineness of what you're doing and people like a good story. So
Yeah.
it's been
And
great.
it sounds like you really built trust. You mentioned earlier that you're in 150 countries, but you made it into countries in the span of 8 months, which is pretty impressive. Was there anything particularly in that rapid expansion that you think about it in terms of like takeaways and insights based on your experience?
Oh my goodness, a whole laundry list. But the top three are one, by going into a hyperscaler marketplace or dealing with hyperscaler, you're dealing with a global entity. So if you're a small organization, you can punch way above the numbers that you thought were big become like, oh, we can do that in a quarter, right?
Mm.
The scale changes. The second piece is just looking at what's required. You start looking at where are all my resources? Like you need to start, you have to we were this small little company in Georgia, and now we're thinking like, oh boy, we have resources in Dubai, we have some in Southeast Asia, like where you need to be able to have all of this team so that you can support this 24-hour. And then how do you do that at scale? And like I said, it was a blessing in disguise because everybody was remote, right? So all the tools were better, Zoom calls teams, everything was being put in place to support that. Whereas before COVID, it wasn't that easy to have like meetings and people working in different spaces and it feel like a team. It really helped us out there.
Part of this journey was also the refinement of your business model. You've already mentioned that you moved from services to real product
Yeah.
offering. Can you
Yeah.
tell us about that too? There's some tension there between the high volume and the high dollar accounts. How do you think about that in the business and how has that evolved for you?
So for us, it's more profitable. And I tell people who are in consulting now, think of it in terms of we went from a model where it was very people intensive, right? So your revenue is tied to how many hours your people bill. Software is completely opposite. Once you built the software, you can spend that one amount and then it could be an infinite amount of revenue that you can gain. It's not even like it's a widget. It's not like you
Right.
gotta go and make it
Right.
every time somebody does something. It's a thing that's in the ether and they download it and it helps them. So I love the challenge. Like I said, it was awesome. It was one of those things where, a little bit crazy making because you're sitting there, you're seeing your business, you're seeing it's like a desert. It's like all the business is going away, everything is quiet, nobody wants to sign anything because nobody knows anything. And then again, as a business owner, you have to figure out a path forward. Usually like we're not closing doors, right? That's not happening.
I love it because you're an overnight success, but
Yeah.
it's been a 20-year.
I tell people when we laugh about that all the time is yeah, I'm a 20-year overnight success story. Cause it's like all of the learnings, all of the things that we did over that 20 years prepared us for what was going to be this opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And then the biggest piece of that is taking inspired action to actually, like I said, I'm sure everyone saw Netflix or saw things that were evolving as they were in COVID, but taking the initiative to say, if we do this, let's just try it. Again, you're investing resource, you're investing time into it. And then once it takes off, so we started like our first product was released in April of 2021. That was our first product. But over that first year, like I said, we were in 44 countries by the end of that year. I needed to rethink about that process. How do we get our product into market? How do we market ourselves? How do we brand? And it's an evolution, just like any other stuff. It's like you have to evolve with the industry.
You serve your core customer DevOps folks who obviously have high standards. And
Yep.
I'm sure one of the challenges, but I'd be curious to know now that you're a little more established and you've had this success, how are you handling some of the challenges around like maintaining speed, accuracy, consistency, some of the expectations of that DevOps audience?
Yeah. The biggest piece that I would say with us is we focus on security. Because like I said, I don't know, CrowdStrike took anyone who was flying, they were impacted.
Yeah, and you're in Atlanta. We know Delta was not so happy
They
about
weren't
that.
happy.
No.
It's just one of those things where you focus, we bake security into our products. We put best practices into our products. We have 33 government agencies that use our products as well. That inherent, to your point about trust, we don't want there to be this incident and then you're like, oh yeah, you got to regain that. My background is in engineering. So I over engineered it. I'm like, okay, how do we make sure that we don't have issues with whatever we put out? But so yeah, so that was the focus. And then when by focusing on that support and maintenance and all of those things, that becomes a secondary component of your business, not a main component. Because a lot of people push out their software and now support, maintenance, ticketing, and all that stuff becomes an issue because you have this customer base and now you got to support it, but that becomes a drain. Ours is more efficient and automated. So as we build out our processes, I talked about this a little bit, people, process, system. Do we put a person there? Is that a process improvement that we're doing? Or do we import a system into to do that thing? And so you're always like playing with the ratios of which one you're using. Like I said, everybody wants to use AI, but AI is a great enabler. It's not going to replace someone, but it'll make a small team a really effective team. And so that's what we look at with our software as well. How do we enable people that are small hyper teams or even a large organization to do more with less.
That's such a great segue because yeah, that is also something I thought was really interesting about your company that you're serving both, startups, you've mentioned some world-renowned brands and government agencies. And those are very different market segments. So
Yeah.
is it that do you have different products that are tailored to this, or how are you balancing this across your suite of offerings?
So we have a suite of products that we have, and we're branding it as Concierge Cloud now.
Mhm.
So we started out with, like I said, with a handful of solutions, but we actually automated the creation of our solutions using DevOps. Again, that's what we do. So we're like, there's no need to continue to do the same thing repeated over and over again. You just
Right.
create a process for it, put it in place. And that helps us because it's an automated system. We can now service our customers and feel confident about what we're doing. So if there's something that happens, literally we run a script and it updates everything. It doesn't require someone to sit there and like manually do all these processes, and then all the checks and balances are put in place to make sure that the quality is there. So I think for us, beginning with the end in mind, like I didn't know how big things would get or how much we would have, but I also have that engineering mind, which is you want to make sure if you're going to measure twice, cut once.
It's funny you say that you didn't have a strategy, but it sounds like you very successfully built in scalability into this. So you might be selling yourself a little short, I think.
Possibly,
But it's inspiring because I think it also sounded to me like you had a thoughtful balance between that MVP and again, something that could take you farther. So kudos. I think a lot of companies really struggle with finding that balance.
again, in that 20 years. So
Yeah. Interesting.
yeah, the in training time, we seen websites go live. There's this place here, a restaurant here in Atlanta. They were expanding outside of the market. They went to DC and they decided to give away free biscuits to people coming. It shut down their entire website.
Mm,
Like everybody was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that's the beauty and problem of the internet, right? You
right,
have
right.
millions of people who are now having access to or eyes on what you're able to do. And so and that preparation got me to think about, yeah, if you have one person, okay, you're good. 100 people, great. Okay. 10,000, maybe I would worry. A million, okay, what do we do? And so
Right.
if you having that experience, some of the things that I think about scale as part of that. So to your point, yeah, you have to measure it to make sure that your worst case scenario doesn't put you out of business, right?
Yeah, it's great. I love it. Looking back at this, is there anything that you would have done differently based on this experience, or are you generally pretty happy with how things have turned out so far?
So I'm absolutely ecstatic with how things have turned out. Would I change things? Absolutely. Being that Monday morning quarterback, looking back at it and saying, oh, I would have done this differently, having a legal person for HR purposes. Like you're coming in, you're having to deal with not just HR in the US, but HR in different
Right.
countries. What is the implication of that? What are the tax implications? What are all the things that most small businesses, you're usually in a local geographic region. I knew what happened in Georgia, but what happens now, we have employees in California, we have employees in Texas, we have employees in New Jersey, just within the states, not even going outside of the contingent USA. But you need to know, or here's your employee handbook, and these rules apply in these different states versus your state. Because again, you become AI aware. Like you're like, oh my God, what's all this other stuff that you need
Right.
to.
Operational complexity. Absolutely.
So that's the only thing that I would
Okay.
really go back and just, if I could go back, I would have started those things a little bit different. But even then, we picked great systems. So again, looking at people process system, we leveraged an online like HR portal. Everything is integrated into the portal. So your benefits, your times, everything is in that portal and these mobile app. So that took a lot of the burden off of having to spin up and handle a lot of this stuff internally.
Sure. That makes sense. You are a profitable company. What do you think about when it comes to having an exit, or is this a company you keep for a long time?
I had the benefit. So Microsoft did, I was part of an accelerator program that they had. We got a chance to work with Georgetown's School of Business.
Hmm.
And before that, I was just thinking, oh man, this is great. We have a great model. Let's continue to scale. And then once we do this for a couple of years, we'll think about exit strategies, or do we become acquired? Do we sell? And wait, reality check. You go in and all of the people in the business school, they're like, no, begin with have an exit strategy. Think,
Right.
okay, what is the timeline that you want to be acquired? Who do you want to acquire? So start looking at all of these different metrics now, make those your KPI for your business from day one. So now, okay, if I'm hitting 50% of my target or 100% of my target, I can speed this rubric up. And so that was like the biggest thing that I looked
Mm.
at. So to answer your question, definitely profitability. We got that check. Second is who would want either do we acquire or
Mhm.
become acquired? That's the $1 million question. And so just really focusing on what does it take to grow your organization into an organization that someone will want to buy first and foremost. And then once you do, that gives you the opportunity to make those decisions. Yeah.
That's great. Aside from KPIs, were there any other kind of changes that you made to the business, or to the extent you want to talk about things you are thinking about as you move forward?
Yeah, before that whole interaction, we had several solutions that were sold each as eaches, right? So you're doing this, you download this
Right.
product, you're doing that, you download that product. And so what that does, it gets you in a lot of different rooms. But then if you're looking at channel sales or partner reselling and all of the things that would help you scale at an even bigger rate, that's hard. Like you're giving them a Rubik's cube that they have to figure out every day how you do that. So what we did was we focused on Concierge Cloud, which is, and again, I didn't create this. We took the Netflix model. So whenever there's a new movie that comes out for your subscription, you get to see that, right? So what we're saying is with our Concierge Cloud model, as we build new tools, if you're a subscriber, you get that automatically, right? So now it makes it easy to describe what it is. If you're doing anything in DevOps, pretty much, we have something for you, and it makes it easy for the customer to understand it. They can buy it at scale. You don't have to have an individual conversation about each individual thing that you're doing.
Yeah, so is part of your thinking also around what the upsell process is like? Are there cross-sell opportunities, et cetera? Or is it more, to your point, is it more Netflix intentionally in that you have something that has such wide appeal that it's almost like a service level, but not really a product difference?
Yeah, so it's both. And here's why. So some of the services, you can get them from other people, but why would you? Yes, I can buy that from them, but because you have all this other stuff that you're doing, by bundling it together, it gives you a better overall package deal. So that's the methodology behind it. And then from a strategic standpoint, not to keep throwing out different brand names, but Amazon, when Jeff Bezos came out with, okay, we're going to do Amazon and we're going to have everything, like you're going to do logistics and packaging. He was thinking way beyond just the here and now. If we build this ecosystem of on demand, you get it when you want, you can go into a store and pick it up. That's the kind of ingenuity that we're adding to IT, because at IT, we're all the things that we are, a lot of things get repeated. And so what we want to do is focus on how can we accelerate through the processes that are repeatable.
Makes sense. Again, good strategy. Sounds like. I know, Dexter, that you are really passionate about community. You alluded to that a little earlier. Could
Yeah.
you tell us more about your involvement in the community in Atlanta as you're expanding to other cities and other countries that you might be taking that community mindset with you?
Yeah. So I think of community as I start with my employees first, right? So when you're bringing someone into your organization, what is your culture that you're creating? Be mindful of that because that's your initial community. Because outside of that, they have families. You're providing a revenue stream that's giving opportunity and growth and all of the other things. So I start with the employees first. And then outside of that, it's the things that I'm passionate about. So to your point about social justice, I don't have to announce that this is a Black owned organization. If you just looked at me, you'd be like, oh, okay, African American. Okay. So you want to make sure that as you're growing as an organization, there should be a component of giving back. If you become a $1 billion organization, great. You've helped a lot of lives, but what component of that was given back to help your community, to help
Right.
the social impact across the things that you're passionate about? And everybody's going to have their different thing. My mom was very instrumental into making some decisions for the things that I did. I grew up in the South. She literally they had a police escort her to the school that I ended up graduating from with
Wow.
honors. The amount of courage that it takes to do something like that, you want to find ways to help empower that next generation of people.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's amazing. Thank you for doing that work. As part of that, what is the advice that you would give other entrepreneurs, founders, maybe even someone like you who had an established company and either is hoping to replicate your success or maybe feels inspiration in how you're approaching the community and in giving back?
Yeah, so I would say definitely keep it as a passion. I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't say that it generated more revenue for the company, but it wasn't done to generate revenue. It was actually done out of, I'm passionate about this thing
Right.
and I want to pour time and energy and effort into it. And like I said, I think people pick up on the fact that it's a genuine passion of yours, and then it just feeds on itself. I always tell everyone entrepreneurs are magicians, right? You come up with this idea, and that idea becomes this living, breathing thing that impacts others. And so everyone doesn't have that ability, right? Like, you may have an idea, but you don't take the inspired action or you can't execute on certain things. And so having that different mindset, we have to apply that to our community and our ecosystem at large.
I love that. It's very inspiring. Is there anything else that you wanted to share?
I always say this, and it's just like a mantra of mine. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. It's not my statement, but it's one of those things that you have to always consider as a business owner, right? Is it good? Can it be better? Yes, we are going to always look at it, process improvement, lean manufacturing. You go into all these different methodologies for it. But at the end of the day, when you boil it down, it's don't let perfect be the enemy of good. You start with something, you get it out there, and then over time, you can continue to make it better. And we can apply that in business. We can apply that in our personal lives. And the other thing I would say is focus on being 1% better every day. As an organization or business owner, the thing that gives you the massive scale is consistency.
Mhm.
People are like, oh, I'm going to make $1 billion this year. And it's, do you need to make $1 billion this year? Or would you be okay if I grew revenue on a weekly basis or a daily basis, 1% every day? You would get to $1 billion and not even be thinking about the $1 billion. Just like, okay, every day I'm doing this thing and it's growing. Like 1% today isn't 1% of what it was yesterday. It's 1% of the growth, right? So now that growth, that 1% number is a bigger number every day that you do it.
Last question, which I always ask because I love the answers. What do you find that high performance companies do differently from average performers?
High performance companies, it's consistency. Like every day, their executive staff has created the North Star and everyone is bought into that. Pick any number of the companies that perform at a high level. Someone sets a directive or a direction for the company, and then all of the different levels within the organization, they know what part they need to play in order to be successful. And I'll use a football analogy to take it home. Everyone can't be a quarterback.
Mhm.
If a quarterback can sit back and throw, there was a lineman in the trenches blocking for him and tackling and doing all this other stuff. So you need good linemen. You need good position players like your receivers, tight end. You need a good running back. But the quarterback, he's sitting there, he's looking at what's happening. And so I think these companies that are high performance, they get great role players that want to do that role. And that's what separates them.
I love that. Thank you so much, Dexter. This has been such a great conversation, and we really appreciated having you.
It's a pleasure being there.
Thanks so much for listening to Good Revenue. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to the show, give us a rating, or leave us a review. It helps other listeners find us, and we really appreciate your support.